Right, welcome to another episode of the Old Parachute Podcast. And today I'm joined with former Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineer and Iraq veteran, Simon Brown. How you doing, Simon? All right?
I'm all right, mate. How are you getting on?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Thank you very much for taking the time out. As all the guests that I get on, I appreciate you giving up the time to come on the podcast. It means an awful lot to me to get you on. So again, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Like I say, it's nice to help people like yourself get the stories out there, get noticed, and it's just nice, isn't it, to be able to share your stories and not be ashamed of them. I think the military spent too long in the shadows, and it's nice to be out there and talk about who we are, what we do, and let people relate to us more.
No, absolutely, pal. Absolutely. There can't be enough attention pointed towards the old military veterans and stuff, because again, as you know, things happen, wars happen, and then very, very quickly they kind of get forgotten again. So, and I don't think they should. I think they should always be remembered and they should always be talked about. So if I can bring any sort of attention to that, then it's a bonus, isn't it? So what I like to do, pal, is like with quite a lot of podcasts, I like to start at the beginning. I like to start about like how you was at school, growing up, where you grew up, and kind of what led you down the path that you did and joining the unit that you did. So, yeah, over to you, pal.
Well, I actually, the house I live in now with my grandparents. I'll come on to why I'm living here a bit later, I guess. But yeah, I grew up in South Leeds, a town called Morley. My dad was ex-forces, RAF. My mum was a pad brat, so she grew up in military camps, and they made a decision early on. They didn't want their kids moving around, and being military yourself, how tough it can be on families. So they made a decision they wanted their kids to have roots, and that's where we went from there. So I ended up back where my dad grew up. I want a daft kid. I want a bright kid. I want a middle of the road student. But as I moved into high school, it was discovered I had dyslexia, and that kind of had an impact on how I learned and how I processed information. So I was never really an academic. Give me something in my hands and start fiddling about, I was all right, but it asked me to write a précis on it, and I fall to bits. So when I came out, there weren't really many options. A lot of my mates that were kind of similar to me were going in building trade, or they had dads that like plumbers, builders, brickies, or chippies, stuff like that. And my dad was electrical engineer himself, so there wasn't really scope to go into that without qualification. So the army seemed like a sensible route to take. Back in there when we did barb test, my scores came back and said, "Oh, you might want to look at being at REME." So I went through that process up to Glencourse, run around in about 10 minutes, I think, freezing my proverbials off. And that's when I got a nod to say, right, sit by the phone, take the oath, here's your shilling. Next thing you know, I'm on a train to Pirbright.
Wow. What year was that?
That was 97. Yeah, just I turned 18 in November 96, but my granddad were Irish from Dublin. Even though I'd done 35 years in RAF, it took 6 months to vet me because they had Irish heritage.
Right. Okay. Well, I joined also in 97. I joined, I think, October 97 I joined. So we probably would have been in about the same amount of time, but I didn't do as long as you. I think you did. Did you do about 10 years?
10 years active, and then I bluffed 3 years on rehab to get my pension sorted out.
Yeah, so I only did 7, so I got out in 2004. But yeah, how did you find basic? How do you find basic training?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it was easy. When you reflect, it was easy because you just didn't have to think, did you? Just as you were told, when you were told, how you were told. And for me, that was quite straightforward. It's just, the old Forrest Gump syndrome. Why did you do that? Because you told me to, drill sergeant. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was a bit gangly and a bit sort of weird as a young kid. So I was targeted. But they always target someone, don't they, to sort of make everyone else realise it ain't easy passing basic training, and I was that target. I was just too stupid to realise at the time, really. So I just got on with everything I got told to do, you know, whether I enjoyed it or not. And, you know, at the time you think this is crap. But on reflection, yeah, it was just probably one of the easier times in my life, in the sense, not what I was doing, but in the sense of actually having to think for myself. I never had to. Just I was told what time to get up, what to wear, where to be, what time to go to bed, and, you know, eat, drink, repeat.
Yeah, I think a lot of people with basic training that you can overthink it, can't you? And it's literally how you've just said it. If you do exactly as they tell you, you can't really go far wrong, can you?
Well, that was I remember in one PT session, you know, PTI took a dislike to me and basically just beasted me till I passed out. And there was no what he could say because there's not much I could do, is it? When my body gave up. But I mean, I kept going to just hit the floor. But again, it was just that thing that I was told to keep going till you pass out. So I did. You know what I mean? And yeah, just no thought involved. Just do as you're told.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, well, like basic training, obviously, I think basic training's pretty much across the board for all units. It's not too dissimilar. It's teaching you the basics, the values, and it's basically kind of, as someone put it, I think it was, I used to kind of remember it's like they break you down and then, but they don't, they kind of strip you away and then they kind of make you into what they want. And it's surprising how many Muppets you get in basic training that don't know how to shave, that don't know how to do certain things. Not Muppets, it's the wrong word, but people that don't know those basic life skills. Do you know what I mean? And then you
Like
kind of, sorry, go on.
people who didn't know how to boil a kettle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've never been in an environment where they need to learn. And like you say, it was about, and it was also, you had that common enemy, didn't you? So you bonded. The first bonding session was that common enemy of the NCO shouting and bawling at you.
Oh, absolutely. The depot staff. Yeah. And everyone remembers the depot staff, don't they? The depot staff, like, as much as they're legendary, and then you go on to meet them probably later on in battalion, and they're like totally different towards you. But they used to put the fear of God into you when you went through training, didn't they? So,
Yeah, and I'd like to say, because you knew better, you just got on with it, didn't you?
of course you did. Yeah, yeah. So obviously got through basic training. Phase 2. Where was your basic training at, by the way?
Basic was at Purbright, and then
Right.
phase 2 was at Borden. So yeah, I got loaded on my VM course. Passed that really quite easily. Again, it was vocational learning, hands-on stuff, and I could tell people, you know, I could tell them what I was doing. I just writing it down was a little bit difficult. I mean, instructors. I had one instructor, and I got to take my hat off to him. On one of the written exams, I got a lot of the answers right, but I didn't get them in the right place. And he took me to one side because he kind of understood the situation, and he sorted me out and got me through. And then from there, I excelled. Actually, I was one of the top students on my course. Because I didn't want to let him down, actually, you know, for putting his neck on line for me. I finished that in early '98. Went to Leconfield, done my driver training in there, and then out to Germany. My first posting to Germany was August '98 out to Munster with the King's Royal Hussars.
Good stuff. Good stuff. How long was that posted for? Was that like a 2-year one?
Well, it was meant to be 2 to 3 years, but a lot went on. So so I got there back end of August '98. In February '99, we deployed to Kosovo on Telic 1. Not Telic 1, sorry, Agricola 1. And then, yeah, so that kind of put a scupper because, you know, we hadn't been deployed on that kind of operation for a lot of years on a crossing the border type operation. So it was a bit sort of what we're doing there. So when we came back, the KRH and arms plotted, and they moved back to Tedworth, and the Royal Dragoon Guards then came out to Munster and swapped. So we got extended slightly, did the LAD to sort of settle in the new unit, and ended up going to Oman on Saif Sarir with them in 2001.
That period was like, okay, because I was in about the same time, it was quite busy too. I didn't do Kosovo because I think we were in Ireland at the time, but we did the Macedonia tour. My battalion went to
I think, yeah, Kosovo, like I say, we didn't run into any major hassle. You know, as you did you imagine fighting soldiers, it was what we found. You know, it was the ethnic cleansing that we were cleaning up after. I think that's what damaged most folk. Because you don't class that as soldiering, do you? I speak to a lot of lads that served in Ireland, you know, over the decades, and you know, the struggle there was that it's always hard to fight an enemy that speaks your language, and you didn't know who the enemy were. You know, it could be anyone on the end of the street. But I think the problem we had in Kosovo was we were all geared up to do, you know, a combat tour effectively, and it didn't turn out to that. The peacekeeping stuff, and then it was emptying mass graves and just thinking, why were we not here 6 months earlier to stop this happening? And everybody went back feeling proper guilty.
Yeah, you can't really kind of plan mentally for that, can you? It's not something like incidents and soldiering side of stuff. You kind of we all join up to put ourselves our neck on the line, so to speak, when it comes to being in contact or being in incidents. But kind of that side of things, like you say, your brain's like, well, maybe we would have been here a bit sooner. We could have sorted this out, and that's kind of a natural instinct, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously, how long did you do in Kosovo? Was that like a 6 month or a bit shorter?
Yeah, I think we ended up doing just a little bit longer, because of what happened. I don't think it took them a little bit longer to set up the infrastructure, you know, to have all the camps set up for next tour coming in. So I think so. Yeah, I mean, we arrived in Thessaloniki in sort of like the February, March time, and I think we left around sort of September, October time, which was great because you had the portal next tour were coming in just in time for Millennium, which, you know, went to the biggest party going, and they were going to be on ops.
Yeah, that's not what you want. Millennium was a big one, but you don't want to be on ops. I think we flew out to, I was off the Millennium, but I think we flew out to Afghan New Year's Eve 2001. And like when it clicked over to midnight for New Year, nobody went, there was nothing. Everyone just sat inside. I think it was South Cerning, RF, and it's just waiting to fly out, just like that. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sat here on a fucking floor in a RAF base waiting to fly on ops. Great.
Yeah.
But I think I was on the latch more than likely. But yeah, so obviously you come back from Kosovo. What other tours did you go on? Was that after, obviously you went on the Iraq tour, but was that the next tour after that?
Yeah, next proper tour. Like I say, I did Save Syria 2001. You talk about flying RAF flights. I was flying out to Oman September the 9th. September the 11th, 2001. I was actually on a plane out to the Middle East. And that was a bit sort of sketchy because we had no idea what was going to happen, whether they were going to use a battle group that was already in that sort of area, or whatever, because it was a heavy armour. The kind of, you guys got roped in as light roll, didn't you? So we got flown back to Germany, and then obviously we're keeping a close eye, wait to see what happened next. People like myself were looking at what posting we were going to get next. Was it going to be a unit that was on training to go out? But I ended up going to Fallinbostel, to the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. Again, heavy armour. And then we were back out to Iraq. We went out to Iraq in 2003 as part of the invasion force. So that was my next op tour was Telic 1 in 2003 as part of C Squadron Scots CGs. And yeah, it was strange, you know, because considering what we were planning for, because of all the briefings we've got, you know, you spent a month and a half in desert in MBC kit preparing for this MBC war that never really occurred.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I was on rear party for that because I was getting out then, but I was actually out not long after the Iraq war, doing the close protection stuff. I remember the stories from the blokes and that, and seeing that they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know whether it was going to be sort of kick off or they were going to surrender. Obviously, it was quite a lot. You know, it was quite fucking harsh going in the early days of Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it was strange. I mean, because we just we had a dominant kit, we had a dominant force, and at one point we had to slow down because we were moving too quick for the Americans. Because a C squadron, we were the Scots Dogs. We went round the back of Basra with 40 Commando, and basically completely shocked the Republican Guard because they weren't ready for us coming that way. And then obviously the battle group went through the front door while it was sort of distracted by us. And as you say, it was one of the weird ones though, where everything sort of went to plan. But I think that's what messed everything up because, you know, it was such a successful combat op. We then transitioned into this peacekeeping role overnight, which is great for politicians, but it's not so easy for guys and girls on ground. You know, 1 minute you're on the street corner dodging bullets, and you know the week later you're at the same street corner dishing out bottles of water and rations. It was one hell of a transition to try and get your head round.
Yeah, that it is a weird one, and I don't think members of public kind of or civvies kind of understand that. It's difficult because you kind of you're on an edge, aren't you? Well, you're on the edge anyway when it's like peacekeeping or whatever, but you're going to be in an aggressive fighting force. To then, like you say, handing out bottles of water, handing out rations, and helping with the rebuilding or whatever it is that you do as the peacekeeping role. And it is a very difficult thing to get your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, and on top of that, obviously there was no, absolutely no governance. There was no police or anything like that, and so we were taking on that role as well. So you're then chasing down looting gangs, and you know, we're not trained to be police officers. You know, the police officers go through years of training to do what they do, and you know the skills and sort of understanding, and you know, and it was difficult. So yeah, and that whole transition of being this combat soldier, that's I get what my job is here, I get what the risks are, you know, and let's get on with it. To this this person who's got to be completely empathetic to the surrounding public, acting like a police officer investigating something, as opposed to a soldier going, my life's in danger, let's act.
Yeah, and I think the early days as well, the rules of engagement. I had this conversation with Phil Campion. I know you've been down and chatted to Phil as well,
Yeah.
And we were covering that sort of thing. How the early days of Iraq, it was lawless. It was like the Wild West. You know, there was people couldn't. Obviously, I was out there in the close protection role, so that was a bit balmy for me because it's like you were given the kind of almost flexibility to do not what you want, but you know, there wasn't that military element or structure to it. So it was bizarre. It was like the Wild Wild West, and obviously you guys being out there as like military at the time, it must have been very very bizarre to keep flipping between roles, like you say, soldiers to police officers. But I think that's the adaptability of the British military, isn't it? You know, we were able to do that.
Yeah, and like I say, you got to take your hat off to NCOs and officers. You know, the leadership to control the troops, balance. You know, rotate people in and out. You know, to make sure that folks' heads are in the right place. You're always going to get a bad apple, but when you're dealing with numbers of human beings in that magnitude, you're going to find a bad apple, aren't you? And there's nobody more critical of those who do it wrong than ourselves. You know, we're our biggest sort of bullies when it comes to punishing how we operate on the ground, aren't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's what sets us apart. Again, like I've worked with foreign armies, and like I say, I've got a lot of, you know, a lot to say good things about the American soldiers and various other units as well. But one thing I will say is our discipline and how we are disciplined in those environments. We have that kind of, you know what I mean? We have that part behind us that's because we're so well trained and so it's bred into us that we stay professional. Then we act professional. Whereas some other units from foreign armies, I've not seen that when they start to go a bit disorganized and stuff like that. I don't know if you've witnessed that or if you agree, to be honest.
I've seen, like you say, you could tell who were the more professional units that you worked with. Almost like, you know, I mean, the thing is, I think our reservists and our territorials are very different to other countries' reservists and territorials. I think ours are a lot more professional. And you could tell when there was units of some countries' armies that weren't full-time military, because, like you say, that discipline slipped, or that discipline lacked, or there wasn't that cohesiveness that we had.
Yeah, well, I think some units as well, they don't want to be there. Whereas, like, if you join the British Army, I thought we want to go to combat situations. It's our bread and butter, isn't it? It's what we want to do. So there's no sign of skiving away from it or not wanting to go. You might get the odd person, but generally people are up for it. When something kicks off a conflict, people are up for it, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely, and it's how we used to treat tour dodgers. You know what I mean? They used to annoy you, and that's kind of, that says it all, doesn't it? That if somebody was like that, they were ostracized, as opposed to, you know, and that was the thing that we all kind of knew, that when, you know, push came to shove, our job was to deploy overseas and do our job professionally.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, and I'm proud of being part of that as well, and like, I think most sort of veterans and people are massively proud of the units that they serve for, serve with, and stuff like that. So no, it's a good thing. So that rep tour. So how long was you out in the rep then on that tour?
So that I ended up doing just over 6 months, because I did my junior military cadre out there before I came back. So obviously, because they knew it was going to be a long-term op, they were just sort of trialing development courses and stuff like that. So I ended up doing my junior military cadre desert in Kosovo, in Kuwait, which was lovely. At least I didn't have to iron my kit. But yeah, then I came back. I got sent back to Borden, so I did my my class 1 upgraders on my mechanics course. Then posted to Catterick with the Armoured Infantry. The King Horse at the time then became 2 Lancs, and then, you know, career progressing, going well, and then we deployed to Iraq on Telic 9, which obviously in 2006, when we went out of Telic 9, it had kind of gone a bit funny from 6, 7 onwards, hadn't it? And the insurgency was in full swing, and obviously we knew we were going out on a completely different type of tour.
Yeah, I think that was the Middle East in general, wasn't it? Was it Afghan 2006 onwards, kind of, because before that it was pretty uneventful in Afghanistan as well, and then 2006 it kind of kicked off in the southern states, and obviously a bit of an uprising, wasn't there? And then Iraq and the whole Middle East kind of erupted around that time, didn't it?
Yeah, like you said, and you had the rise of ISIS and all those sort of agencies. And it's kind of like they almost seem to get more organised, and I think that was part of the problem, that there was too much influence from external agencies probably, but they got more organised. They were very good at infiltrating, you know, public services and stuff like that. So, you know, we know that the Iraqi police and the Afghan army were 2 agencies that the insurgents infiltrated quite heavily, and managed to cause quite a bit of chaos and damage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think enough said about that. I mean, obviously, that how well organised and how kind of skilled the Taliban, ISIS were, because obviously people forget that they had years of like US backing and kind of training, and that got passed on generation. I know we're going back to like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, would have been passed on and stuff like that. So they were a well-trained force to be reckoned with, and I don't think that's kind of, I think people just assume it's a load of like Arabs running around with AKs, not really know what's going on. But they had proper tactics and guerrilla warfare and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. So I mean, you think, like you say, you go back 89, but you think about our NCOs, you know, cut their teeth, you know, Northern Ireland, or, you know, the Balkans, the Falklands, even, you know what I mean? And this was the thing, that all our NCOs were the ones teaching us, and we were then teaching our lads and lasses, and that was the thing, wasn't it? That development, and the only thing that was changing was, you know, the type of kit you were using. It, you say the basic tactics have been pretty much the same since the Romans.
No, absolutely, and kits come on leaps and bounds now. I see some of the lads, like I speak to lads that are still in, and the kit they get now compared to what me and you would have got. Like boots that you must remember the issue boots in the late 90s. Fucking hell, they got wet in Otterburn and that really fell off your feet.
Yeah, well, like I said, there weren't. I remember that the engines on the tanks got that hot that were melting the soles off them. So everybody were writing home to the mother, "Can you send us a pair of boots out?" Might have melted.
Yeah, as soon as he got the green light, because it was a bit of like an hierarchy thing in like Power Rage, that you've got to be in a while before you can buy your own kit. But as soon as you've been in about a year and done a tour and you
Yeah.
got the nod, everyone allied the kit up, and it was like, right, I bought my own webbing, I bought my own boots, I wore an SAS windproof. I was like, look, I ain't touching any of that issue kit. But now the issue kit is actually really, really good, isn't it? It's good quality. The boots are really good. I've got a pair of the boots, the Altbergs now. They're really, really good.
I've still got a pair of Aztec Magnums. Swear by them. Brilliant for getting about. But I mean, to just the thing, when I remember when I joined, I got issued. Do you remember the old thermal jacket that looked like?
Yeah.
It looked like the leather cladding that you put under chainmail. And
like the Ho Chi Minh, was that the Ho Chi Minh thermal?
Yeah,
was that the one?
Yeah. And that was the thing you got issued as your thermal sort of jacket, and now it's softer jackets, isn't it? It's kind of,
yeah.
You're just thinking of the amount of kit we used to carry that wasn't actually up to much. I mean, I remember when they first started issuing Norgies, and everyone got dead excited, didn't they? Because it was a decent bit of Gucci kit.
yeah, everyone was after the Gucci kit, but looking back, it's ancient now, isn't it? It's like and I look back, probably the same as you. I don't think, like, looking back at the military photos, I've got some here, look, but they look like they're from the Second World War now. You know what I mean? But they're only 20 odd years ago. But they look ancient. It's bonkers. But yeah, it's that times move on, don't they? And like we become them grumpy old men that look back and go, "Oh, during my time, it was a lot harder." And it's still hard. It's still is what it is. I think the mentality of the guys and girls is still the same as well, isn't it?
And like I say, the risks and challenges they face are different. And like I say, we didn't have the digital issues in the early days. It was, nowadays, the enemy are coordinating what they're doing through WhatsApp groups. You know what I mean? And how hard is it to get set up with that? Whereas, back in our day, they didn't have the communications to coordinate like they did. So it's different challenges and the way people do things. But like I say, it's still the same NCOs getting taught by the NCOs that were before them, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like you say, technology does definitely move on, and it'd be alien to me now if I went back into the military. The amount of kit and everything they go, like I've been out 20 odd years now. It's just a crazy one. But yeah, so Iraq tour. Obviously, how far in before the incident where you got injured? How far into the tour was it?
Well, I've been there a bit early because I went out on activation to get the kit ready for the lads coming out. But I've probably been there 2 months when I got it. Like I say, I was commanding the 513 on patrol. We were out with the green jackets at times. We came 2 rifles, I think. And we were just, like I say, we kind of knew what was going on. We knew that something was going to happen, but we weren't sure where or when. And then it happened. We came under fire. The infantry lads squared it away, subdued the enemy, and then as we went to pull out, that's when the 0 Bravo call sign decided not to move. It was a Bulldog at the time, was a pretty new piece of kit to us, so it was a quick look. I don't know what I'm doing with this. We'll tow it. It was too new. It was too sort of the equipment on there. We didn't have any diagnosis stuff, so it was just a case of we'll just get out of here and we'll sort it out later. But obviously the enemy are not daft, as we've just discussed. They spotted the casualty vehicle, and the whole hell broke loose. It was like Black Hawk Down. We got the casualty vehicle hooked up to mine. And then for some reason, when old John Wayne ran up the front of the truck, jumped into the cupola, my driver says today, you kicked your boots as you went up to kick all sand off. Like I was worried about getting sand in my turret. But yeah, so I jumped into cupola. I got down to the weapon system. Started looking for some baddies to let them know that I was aware they were there. And the driver went, "I can't see, mate." So as all the vehicles set off, all the sand kicked up and dust, and you know it's like out there. There's drainage ditches everywhere. There's abandoned cars, all sorts. So last thing I wanted to do was put our vehicles into a situation where we need recovery. So I used the sighting system. No go, can't see through sand and dust. So I had to do what I had to do and put my head out the turret. I said, right, you're clear, just drive straight. Go, go, go. And that's when I felt the impact on the side of my head. I dropped down back into the cupola onto the seat, sort of a bit tender, not really aware what had happened, how it had happened. And my legs started getting all warm as the blood was running onto them. So I touched that, my hands became greasy, twigged what had happened. I could feel something on my chin, and that was my front teeth. So the round had struck me here, and it had come out here. Clean bullet, still have velocity through and through. A lot of ballistic fortune in my favour for it to do what it did. It shattered both cheekbones. My jaw broke in 4 places. My palate collapsed. And there was other damage that was done that I was unaware of until much later on. The driver went. We got out of the killing zone. We got to a vehicle checkpoint. That's when the medic climbed on board. Sergeant Major Dave Youngs, he jumped on the wagon and put the headset on and commanded the vehicle from on top to get back to Basra Palace. About 20 minutes later, but at the time where I was in the cupola, nobody could really get to me. There wasn't really much first aid they could do. It was more a case of feeding back information to make sure that they were ready for me. Fortunately, I was conscious, so I knew I were bad, but I didn't know how bad. I thought, well, if I'm conscious, I can't be that bad. But my palate, when my palate collapsed, that was actually blocking the airway. So I figured that out and opened my palate up just to get an airway going. And I remember the medic talking to me. He had my hand up there, and he was holding my hand. And towards the time of getting back to Basra Palace, my arm started to drift down. He thought I was losing consciousness, but my shoulder had gone to sleep. I was struggling to keep my hand in the air. So we got back to Basra Palace. I heard them talking about how to get me out. You know, I'm a big lad, 6'2". You know, operationally bulky. So I just ripped my body armour off and climbed out. Again, completely unaware to the damage. Ripped my body armour off, climbed out the turret. At that point, I got grabbed by 4 medics, thrown onto a stretcher. They all started shouting and bawling. People started sticking needles in me. The next thing I actually know, I woke up in Birmingham Hospital 17 days later. So I'd been put into an induced coma, tracheotomy stuck in. I was hit 11 o'clock local time on the Wednesday morning, 6th December. I was being rushed through the streets of Birmingham in an ambulance by 9 o'clock Friday, 9 p.m. local time, Friday the 8th of October. And my parents were informed. They were waiting for me in the hospital, and we're just sat in the ICU waiting for me to get wheeled in. But I had to wheel me in, hook me up to the machines, and then my parents sat there for the next sort of 15 days waiting to find out who was going to wake up, because they had no idea whether there was any cranial damage, brain damage, or like that. Many would say there wasn't much brain to it, but yeah. So you know, I sat there in a coma watching. They took me and had sort of various operations while I was in that induced state. And when I woke up, that's when I found out what had happened. So I had a frame on my face. It was Christmas Eve 2006. Woke up, the frame was on my face. Let's say, and my left eye, the vision had gone completely ripped. The optic nerve being ripped off, but I wasn't aware of this. And my right eye, when I woke up, was light perception. Literally knew if the lights were on or off. And that was it. Like looking through masking tape. And they told me that the prognosis was it probably wouldn't get any better. And as you can imagine, that's when the world just fell apart. I didn't see what point carrying on with. Done everything right, the battlefield, and there I was. I was just told now I was going to be a blind man, and it kind of, it just destroyed me.
Yeah, the sight thing is like it's a biggie, isn't it? It's kind of, you know, injuries and stuff that you cite. That's a different ball game altogether. I should imagine. Obviously, I've never been in that situation, thank God. But yeah, it's like I suppose. How do you kind of view it as like? Obviously, you could argue glass half full, half empty because you took a headshot from a sniper. You should be dead,
Yeah.
technically. But you survived. You're here now. You know you kind of what? How do you kind of view it? I mean,
Well, like you say, I was sat there wallowing in pity, planning not being wallowing in pity, if you know what I mean. And I found out 2 lads had been killed, and that was it. That was the moment. You think I'm sat here sulking, and I'm sat here. They're not, and that was the catalyst moment. That was the moment I decided that I was going to get up and not give up. All my focus at that time had been on everything I'd lost, and that was the moment I realised that I actually started thinking about everything I kept. I knew life was going to be different. I knew life was going to be harder. You know, my PDR plan was out the window, wasn't it? But I still had the opportunities, and it was a case now of, you know, while I'm lying in hospital bed sulking, I'm not going to find out what those opportunities are. And that was the moment I kind of got up and, you know, and along the rehabilitation pathway, there were other moments. Some took me down and some picked me back up. But it was always that moment, you know, am I going to get up or am I going to give up at this point? You know, and survivors don't give up, do they? So that's how I focused who I was. I was a survivor. And I was going to face the next challenge, however hard it was. And I stopped being frightened of failure, because I knew that there were things I wouldn't be able to do. But that shouldn't be a reason not to try.
yeah, no, I'm in awe here, pal. To be honest, listening to your positivity because I honestly don't know. You know, people don't know how they're going to react in that situation until they're obviously put in it. And for you to be as positive as you are about it is like just, I think it's absolutely brilliant, pal. To be fair, so hats off. So have you got your sight in your right eye now? Is that like near enough? Is that okay? Your sight?
No, so I've got 25%. So imagine opening your eyes underwater, so I can see colour, shape, shadow, contrast, but I've no ability to focus. I'm classified severely sight impaired, so that does actually make me eligible for a guide dog. But yeah, I can't look after myself. I can't look after one of them, can I? But yeah, so it does restrict a lot of stuff. You know, I can't drive and things like that. So that affects sort of a little bit of independence. But you find ways around. You find fixes. You find adaptations, and that's what it's about. And over 10 years, I've had great opportunities to meet other people who've either had worse or have just been incredible sort of positive influences. You know, around that time when I got injured, there were a lot of kids got injured who have gone on to become incredible human beings and inspire, you know, millions. And I got the opportunity to, you know, chat and speak to them because I was injured around the same time. And so there was that there as well. And I got to speak to other people who'd lost their sight. I got to learn about, through Blind Veterans UK, I got to learn about what the tools and techniques and, you know, grow my confidence, learn that opportunities were still available. And I had a great family and a great community around me that were supportive. They kind of never treated me no different. They treated me like Cy Brown. So I had to be Cy Brown. And, you know, lots of little things stacked up to make it happen. I mentioned right at the beginning, I was in my grandparents' old house. When I came back injured, my grandma died of cancer, and the family was struggling a bit with selling a house. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be blind, why don't I buy an house that I know my way around blindfolded? So the family helped me out with a deposit. I bought the house, you know, and it's all adapted and developed make it easier for me to navigate and do what I need to do in it. And I think, you know, once you've got a base, once you've got a stable platform, then you can start to experiment, you can start to try things. And again, it's that not being frightened of failing. Just, you get told no a lot in rehabilitation, and it's to protect you. It's so that they don't overbuild your expectations. But I kind of saw that more as a challenge. And so every time someone told me no, I thought, well, I'll find out, shall I? Sometimes they were right, and other times they were wrong. And I find myself in a very good position today, doing a huge amount of stuff I enjoy, doing a lot for my community, because I went and found out.
Yeah, no, mate, like fair fucks to you. I can't, you know, that's absolutely brilliant. And like you say, I think being surrounded by other kind of injured veterans and that kind of helps with that kind of sort of seeing that people are worse off, there's people in better condition, you know what I mean? And it's like kind of just having, and I suppose the dark humor, it's difficult to try and get that across to, I always go to a story, I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 para, but a lad lost his leg on one of the Afghan tours, and he was in a coma for a couple of weeks, and the lads gathered around his hospital bed, put a pirate hat, eye patch, and took a picture of him with all of them stood around it. And when he woke up, that's the first thing he saw. And you know what I mean? And that dark sense of humor, people outside the military or sort of certain services don't get that, do they?
No, I mean, I remember, you know, one person asked me, goes, what did you think, you know, when you got shot? I thought, well, that's REME Wednesday morning. But yeah, there's lots of things like that. And I always laugh about this, but when I was in Selly Oak Hospital, there was a Marine on my right, lost his left leg. There was an infantry guy on the left who lost his right leg. And there were a young kid opposite who had quite bad burns, about 40% burns. And I got chatting to them all different, you know, they all had their own stories. And the lad that was across the way, he was only 19. He'd been in Afghanistan for 2 months. He'd had 2 negligent discharges, and he'd been fined a month's wage for each. So he'd been out in Afghan, got blown up, and never got paid. And you just think, you know what I mean? It's like, how does that happen? And they were also scared of needles, so somebody wrote blood tests on his board every morning, which I thought were a bit cruel. But like you said, being in that environment actually, I think, benefited all of us.
What kind of recovery? How did it go after that? Because I didn't read that you had something like 20 odd operations. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about 25 operations, about 120, 130 hours of surgery to reconstruct my face. My left eye was removed, prosthetic put in. My right eye had a bit of sort of stuff done to try and you know, recover some sight and make sure that it was able to sustain whatever was recovered. So it's about 25%-ish now. So that was over 10 years backwards and forwards to hospital, which it was tough because it's limbo. You're always waiting for the next outpatient, so you're waiting for the next consultation, or you're waiting for a surgical spot. So you can't really plan anything, you can't really move on. But you know, during that time, I got sort of the mental health issues that came along with emptying mass graves and getting shot in the head. So that was kind of trying to deal with that. I was transitioning out of the military, so I was trying to rebuild a life on Civvy Street. You know, one of the things that, you know, when we were talking about mental health with my sort of health professional, it was focus over distraction. It's quite easy to just distract yourself because distraction is normally quite fun. Problem is when distraction goes away, you're still in that hole. Whereas if you focused on something and at the end of it normally came an achievement, and the achievement was a rung on a ladder, you know, to climb out the hole. So that's what I kind of went for. I kind of started doing basic qualifications, ended up doing a teaching qualification. I was working with sort of what's called NEET, not in employment, education or training, which I got some good successes, but I struggled with the failures. Sometimes I just couldn't accept other people's excuses, to be honest. And then an opportunity came to work with blind veterans in their sort of engagement team, working around the country, looking for veterans who needed help and sort of signposting in the right direction. And that kind of was brilliant, because all of a sudden 5 years after my injury, I was back into meaningful employment. I mean, I was still back and forth to the hospital, but I was doing something meaningful in between all the operations, which kind of helped a lot, and it helped me structure my life and rebuild my life, and it gave me that grounding, so that I got to the point where I was like, well, I like this, what I'm doing, but I actually want to do more for other things and concentrate. Looking up with the pension I got, I was able to concentrate on doing projects that I felt valued me and felt that I got value from. So again, I was working more on that focus rather than just hiding behind distraction. I was working with people who wanted support, who wanted help, who wanted to grow. So you kind of got a lot more, successes, because you're watching people who were trying to take advantage of that help, and that always makes you feel good. And as my confidence grew and things like that, that's when I decided to branch out and look at other stuff. And I started working with Leeds Rhinos Rugby Foundation. I was doing some of their outreach stuff with them, working in community, and then they got me involved in the set-up physically disabled rugby league, and they were after sort of folk to get involved and join the Leeds Rhinos team. And I thought, well, I'm fat, I'm 40, and I'm blind. I might as well give it a go, Anna. So yeah, in 2018, I started playing rugby again, and it was incredible. It was a fantastic opportunity, but it meant that, again, that I got to say goodbye to in my own way. It meant I got to work closely with an organisation, a club that I had a huge amount of respect for, and as a kid I was a massive fan of. And that led to other opportunities, and I then decided that actually the body doesn't like us doing this anymore. So I went into coaching. So I not only coach the disability team at Leeds Rhinos now, I also support coaching in local community clubs as well, working with young people. And that's the other opportunities came from that. And it was just always about, I never went looking for these opportunities. They turned up because of the positive attitude and my willingness to give stuff a go. And, I think nurture or nature, I've got to be grateful to my family and my friends and my community that gave me that space to grow and be confident enough to be like that. You know what I mean? And because of that, I've had some great opportunities. I've had some catastrophic failures, but I've had some great opportunities, and I've enjoyed my life. I reflect sometimes, and I think, what would have happened if that round hadn't hit me? Where would my life be now? I could have driven over an IED the next day and been index, or I could have finished a career in the military, and I don't know. We're struggling to sort of fit in now. I just don't know. You can only play the cards that are put on the table, but I think I've played a good hand, and I sit around now. I think, what, I'm quite content with life. The things are difficult. There's challenges I face, but I don't think I trade any of it. All the successes, all the people I've helped, all the things I've been involved in, I don't think I'd give them up to have my sight back.
Yeah, it's you don't know, it's like fate, isn't it? And it's kind of, you're never prepared for the path that you go down, and we all stumble through this life kind of not knowing exactly where we're going, and it's kind of weird. It takes an incident like that to kind of map out, and I think that's, again, I know I keep using the word inspiring. I don't mean for that to sound patronising, but I generally do feel like, you've had a massive, but you've turned it into like a full-on positive and made it a complete success, to a point where you're like you just said, I wouldn't change anything, and that's only good things can come from that, isn't it?
Yeah, and let's be honest. I got caught one day. Lots of people get caught. Some have got caught worse. Some didn't get caught as bad. But let's not take away from people like yourself that were still out there. They were still in danger. They just didn't get caught that day. And that could have been a gust of wind. It could have been someone coughing, and you stopped and turned around to see what it was. You know yourself. You come back off tour and you reflect on how many close encounters you really had. And it's emotionally draining. It's psychologically draining as well as physically draining. And I don't think people understand what it takes out of all of us, you know, whether we get hit or not, you know, whether it's our mate that gets hit or not. They don't understand what it takes out of us. And, you know, we all sacrifice a little piece of who we are to do the job we do. And we all do it willingly because we're all volunteers. But that's why I love this community, the veterans community, the armed forces community, because, you know, the vast majority of us understand that sacrifice. We know that the chip is put on the table and the wheel is spun, and we all are willing to deal with whenever the ball lands. You know what I mean? And that's what makes us a slightly different community to most, is that willingness to accept ultimate liability. Like you say, you just got to go with the flow, aren't you? I think, like you say, I think someone was telling me, I got some research, that it takes about 10 years on average for people to reconnect with the military when they leave of their own volition. And I can agree with that, because I'm catching up with lads that I knew that have been out about 10 years now, and they're sort of starting a reunion, starting to turn up to stuff. And I think it's important that we ensure that those places are always there and always available, so that when people are ready, that it's there for them. Because, like you said, people don't know what's going on around the corner. You know, our lives very much echo that sentiment that, you know, the plan only survives the first round. You know, I mean, we can't plan too far ahead, because we've got no idea what's going to happen. And you know, it's not just on ops. We've all seen friends get injured in training, you know, or RTAs and things like that. It all can happen whenever. But I do think that it's important for people like myself, and I'm glad that you're on board with what's going on now, that we do stick our head above the parapet. We do talk about who we are. We do share our stories. We do connect with people, so they understand, you know, that we're just kids that went to their school at the end of the day. But it's also making sure that when people need us, that the processes and the groups and the places that are set up for people to find us, and hopefully they don't go down that dark road that ends up with yet another funeral.
Yeah, no, absolutely, pal, absolutely. And look, you know, that was one of the reasons why I kind of started the podcast in the first place, is because, again, I've lost numerous friends over the years through suicide, military, fire service, guys that work close protection. So I kind of, if anything I can do from this, part of it's a hobby, like I say, but part of it is if I can raise awareness and kind of get people to talk, and for stories like yourself to get out there, because, again, you can only take positives away from your story. You know, you can, your kind of your positivity behind the whole thing, and your attitude towards it is just brilliant. So, you know, if that reflects and gets across to people that are in dark places, then it's only a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for those that are in dark places, you know, it's not all sunshine and lollipop for me. You know what I mean? I have my black dog days. I have the dark moments, and so you know, I understand. It's not about, you know, it's not about saying, well, I'll do this, why can't you? It's you find your own way of dealing with it. You find your own path. And, you know, what I would say, if anyone out there is listening to this and, you know, they are in that dark place, just hang in there, find someone, you know, talk to someone, because there's people out there that'll listen, there's people out there that'll understand, there's people out there that won't judge, because we've all had a shit day, you know what I mean, and we know that they happen. My way of dealing with it is, if I have the bad day, the day I don't want to get up, the day I want to hide, I'm allowed one now and again. But I've got to go out and do something positive the following day, you know, whether it's go for a tab, whether it's pack home, go to the gym, whether it's go, you know, I'll jump on train and go visit a different city in the UK and just spend a day walking around coffee shops. But the idea is I've got to do something the next day. That's the trade-off. I can have my sulk, but I've got to do something positive. It's got to cost me. And, you know, you get to that point where, you know what, I don't want to do it tomorrow, so I'm not going to sulk today.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the whole, like you said, getting out for a tab, getting to the gym, that stuff's kind of underestimated when it comes to your mental health. And like, you know, you get in the gym, and again, it's inbred in us from sort of young ages, like from joining the military, that the fitness kind of has a massive positive on your mental health as well, doesn't it? So like you say, yeah, if you have a day where you're not, you kind of feel like wallowing a bit, and we all have them, yourself out to the Peak District, the Lake District, or just get out yourself, go for a tab, or get yourself in the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, pal. Thank you very much again for making the time. I'll talk to you briefly off air in a second. But no, thank you very much for coming on. And again, it's been brilliant. Thank you, pal.
No, keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Cheers, pal. Thank you very much.